Welcome back. We'll continue the teaching. Now the number 9. The best form of generosity is non-attachment. Non-attachment. Non-attachment is the best form of generosity because it goes deeper than simply giving. It transforms the very source of suffering and selfishness in the mind. It removes the root of giving with expectation. So when you give without attachment, you expect nothing in return, but pure motivation. So the act of giving then become free, joyful, pure, sincere. And at the deepest level, generosity is the practice of letting go of clinging. Material, just generosity, give things, helps others temporarily, but given without attachment frees the mind forever, right? Attachment is one of the main causes of suffering. So if you give things away but still clinging inside, then suffering remains. And without attachment, any act of giving becomes vast and limitless. Therefore, true generosity is not only giving something away, but giving up attachment itself in Buddhism. So motivation is also important when you give. If you give things with a wrong motivation, for example, hoping, the gift will harm others, or, expecting something back, then it is not genuine practice of generosity. So bodhisattvas give whatever they offer simply for the benefit of others, nothing else. So therefore, true generosity is not only giving something away, but giving up, the attachment. In Buddhism also, protecting the lives of sentient beings, and also for many good practitioners becoming vegetarian sort of lifestyle is considered also important practice of generosity. So we usually say that I will do everything I can to help other beings. So we make sort of this commitment, right, when we take bodhisattva vows. We make this commitment sort of repeatedly through practice aspiration bodhicitta, right? May all sentient beings have happiness. We say this commitment all the time. But then, we still harm others for our own temporary happiness and pleasure, which contradicts our commitment. So this is something we need to think about very carefully. So the best form of generosity is the intention to give things away based on the realization of non-attachment. So this is the real meaning of perfection of generosity. Therefore, generosity is fundamentally a matter of the mind itself, okay? Then the next, need to go a little bit faster. The best discipline is pacifying one's mind. It means pacifying the mind means, again, reducing anger, desire, jealousy, and bringing the mind into a state of balance, awareness. Remember I said in Buddhism, the mind is the source of all actions. All actions of body, speech arise from the mind. So when the mind is disturbed, then action becomes harmful. When the mind is calm, actions naturally become ethical. So external rules alone are not enough. The rules, you follow the rules, right? The rules can control behaviors temporarily, but they cannot eliminate sort of anger, attachment, and ignorance. Only the inner discipline, pacifying the mind, can transform these negative emotions. So when the mind is calm, we speak more gently, we act with patience, and even like small moments of calm in the mind are acts of true discipline. The highest form of discipline is not controlling others or only following sort of external rules. It is learn to calm and train one's own mind. So when the mind is peaceful, ethical conduct and wisdom naturally follow. So through discipline, we can take better care of our own conduct, pay attention to everyone is doing, pay attention to also like every actions of our body, speech, and mind is the meditation of discipline. So discipline is constantly observing again our own reactions with awareness, and it brings great discipline, and that discipline can reduce our negative thoughts, harmful motivation, and unwholesome actions. Therefore, discipline is necessary, not just to Buddhist, but in our daily lives. That's why it says the best discipline is pacifying one's mind. Then the best form of patience is humility. So in Buddhism, patience is not just about enduring difficulties or holding back anger. So true patience arises when the mind is gentle, humble, and open, without pride, arrogance, or self-centeredness. In other words, a humble mind naturally practices patience. It does not cling to thoughts such as I am the best. Humility is the best form of patience, which prevents self-centered sort of reactions. A proud or arrogant people struggle to be patient because they feel easily insulted or offended. So humility reduces the sense of self-importance, right? And then making patience more effortlessly. Humble people are less likely to experience anger and jealousy, which improves their patience. So when we are impatient, we can feel the stress in both our mind and body, and then we definitely suffer. Of course, in the samsara, people will let us down. People are going to hurt us. People don't do things in the way we want, for sure. Life will be difficult at times, but with patience, we don't become angry or frustrated very easily, and difficulties do not disturb us all the time if we practice patience. But it's once we are in that situation where we are very angry, then doesn't work. Practice patience doesn't work. There is a time you have to practice. Because many people do not realize that how destructive anger is and how important patience truly is. People say, when I'm angry, I can't practice patience. Of course you can't. But there's a time, perfect time you can practice. Your mind is not totally out of control, but a little bit upset. There's room for patience. That's a perfect time. Then you grow that practice, then, you can practice. A patient person trusts the process and believes that better day will come. Remember, Shantideva taught that the nature of our ordinary experience is samsara, and that samsara is like fire that naturally burns us. So in Buddhism, when we talk about suffering of samsara, we are primarily referring to the state of our minds. Therefore, we need to free ourselves from samsara by going beyond an impatient and selfish mind. Impatient people are always frustrated, upset, and unhappy with everything. Atisha also taught that if people don't give you a difficult time, you would never be able to learn patience. This is very true, but it's not easy to practice. Do you remember another very helpful method that Shantadewa suggests is that when someone gives us a hard time, he said we should view that person as our teacher. Shantadewa also said that harmful beings are everywhere, so it is impossible to control them all. But if we overcome our own mind through practice patience, then all harmful beings are also subdued. Remember that he gave examples, the leather, small size like your feet. You cover that, then you're safe. You don't have to control outside everything. Once we have a patient mind, then we are happy. Even though there are lots of harmful beings everywhere. Anyway, then the best diligence is the giving up of actions. Now it's talking diligence. In Buddhism, diligence refers to disciplined and a joyful effort on the path. So here, giving up of action does not mean giving up all activity, but abandoning unwholesome, harmful, or ego-driven actions. Not action itself, right? It's not about laziness or doing nothing. It's about wise focus on and right effort on the spiritual path. We act skillfully and mindfully, avoiding actions that create laziness, suffering for ourselves or others. So we focus on what really matters, concentrating on actions that lead to love and wisdom and liberation. Shantadewa said that you should remember the preciousness of human life and recognize that we now have the opportunity to practice the Dharma. No matter how difficult the path may be, we should never give up, but continue to practice with diligence. So in order to be diligent, we need self-confidence, right? We must reflect on what is beneficial and what is not. When we have self-confidence, we can put our whole heart into our practice. Self-confidence. Once we have started, we must finish it. That's I do, really. That's the good thing about me. When I started, I want to finish. Like, for example, when you started, like preliminary practice, you must finish it then. Don't look something else before you finish it. Like sometimes people ask me, I'm practicing my refuge, but I also want to practice it. And then, okay, I'm very busy and I can't do both. You don't have to. Just whatever you started, just to finish it. Don't look something else before you finish it, because there could be obstacle. So with this attitude of patience and commitment, nobody can stop you. Like you say, I started this, now I'm going to finish it. Then nobody, if you have that kind of self-confidence, nobody can stop you. And when strong motivation is combined with diligence, you will achieve your goals. Not giving up when life becomes difficult. Stay strong. Strength helps us move forward and helps us believe in ourselves. Keep going even when the path feels difficult and uncertain. We don't know, like, I'm practicing Buddhism. I don't know. I will achieve enlightenment. It's uncertain, but it's just keep going. Because in Buddhism, when you take this journey, this path, challenges are part of every journey. And your progress may be slow, but every small step matters, right? So remember why you started. Why? And then focus on your goal. I start this because of this, my goal. So then you don't stop it. You just keep going. So hard work, patience, self-confidence, consistency always brings the result, your goal, over time. So never give up. That's diligent. Now the 13th, it says, the best meditation is in uncontrived mind. Something an uncontrived mind is one that, lets experience arise naturally, right? Without trying to control or force anything. So the best meditation is not something we do, but something we stop doing. So when the mind is uncontrived, its true nature reveals itself naturally. So you experience the clarity of mind that comes when it's free from distractions. So as you know, generally speaking, there are three methods of concentration, right? The first, the first is, like preliminary concentration, which is, shamatha meditation. Then second is we call it clear concentration, in which is mind remain one-pointed and free from discursive thoughts. Then the third is we call it excellent concentration, which is the realization of the ultimate awareness, the nature of mind itself. So what I'm saying is because The first two types of concentrations are methods of training the mind, and the third, the excellent concentration, is the recognition of the mind's true nature, which is beyond effort. So when your concentration is directed towards looking at the essence of the mind is totally 100% free from thoughts and emotions. So this is realization, not just concentration. That's why they call the best, the excellent concentration. So simply, speaking, have you ever tried sitting completely still and relaxed without a single movement of body and mind, even for just 3 or 5 minutes? Not this expectation, I want to meditate like this. No movement. Both my body and mind, including maybe my eyes, maybe like half an hour, maybe 2 hours. No, you can't do that. You don't need that. But have you done or have you tried like 4 or 5 minutes? Totally relax it without a single movement of the body and the mind. You will experience this relaxation, free from everything. So when you stop moving, for example, moving your body, the nerve systems, your sort of, your muscles, release tension, right? The body starts to feel grounded. If you remain totally relaxed, don't follow any thoughts, no judgment, no stress, these moments of stillness are very valuable, right? Even a few minutes, even like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, can reduce your stress. That's why Buddhists say, like, if you have good motivation, it takes away your stress, your negative emotions. And people say, how? That means because you are not relaxed when you meditate, you don't experience this stillness. If you do, then you know, right? You can reduce this stress and everything, negative, impatient, whatever it is. Even a short time, if body and mind relax together, there can be a gentle sense of relaxation, openness, contentment, all these good things you will experience. So each time you sit like this, then no expectations and judgment, and then over time this become the foundation for, deeper meditation. Try that, just by yourself, totally relax. You know how to do that. Now the 14th, the best of wisdom is freedom from ego clinging. Of course, we know that. So why letting go of ego is the best of wisdom? because it directly cut through the fundamental misunderstanding that causes suffering. All, according to Buddhism, all suffering arises from ego. Why ego is root of suffering? From ego, come attachment. From ego come anger. Ego come from, ignorance. That's why holding on to ego creates all this suffering. And seeing through ego brings wisdom. But the best wisdom is not sort of collecting, information or intellectual knowledge. Wisdom is realizing that the ego we constantly protect is not permanent, not solid. Don't misunderstand. Letting go of ego does not mean in Buddhism you lose your sort of personality. You can still live with more flexibility, more kindness. So it means you no longer clinging to a solid identity. You see, Buddha, after 6 years of practice, the Buddha Shaktimuni said that I have discovered a nectar-like wisdom realization that is infinite, profound, and peaceful. That's what I was talking about. When you totally relaxed, then you can see this infinite, profound, peaceful. That is the best wisdom, what we call it. So that in Buddhism, wisdom and compassion, I always say this must develop together. So this union is what we call bodhisattva. Remember in the prayer of Samanthabhata says, all beings share the same nature, right? But follow two paths. The path to samsara begins with ignorance, which means lack of this great wisdom. And the path to nirvana, liberation, begins with the wisdom. So wisdom allows us to see things clearly. It helps us to overcome ignorance so that we're not confused with all this, samsaric activities, permanent and all these things, So when someone, for example, criticizes you with ego cleaning, what we do? We anger. Well, our anger arises as a way of protecting ourselves. With wisdom, we see the words arise and then pass without taking them personally. So this non-grasping is wisdom in action. So there is a great wisdom and wisdom in action, right? So when this illusion is clarified, suffering naturally dissolves. Shanadeva said, who creates the heel realms? The evil mind create heel realm. Evil mind create them. Remember that. There is no such thing as heel realm exists somewhere. Ego mind create. I believe that. Then the 15th The best teacher is one who attracts your hidden faults. Here attracts may sound aggressive, right? Which some people might not like. But it's very common in this context. You may prefer to hear the best teacher is one who points out your faults or you cannot see yourself. But, I will keep this word here as it exactly what Tibetan teachers use. There are many examples of this, such as, Marba, the Milarepa's teacher, and Milarepa himself, and Atisha. They do this kind of thing. A good teacher does not always comfort the student. Rather, the teacher helps you see your hidden faults. You don't recognize that's what they say, hidden fault, which is necessary for true spiritual growth. So, hidden faults here refers to, subtle mental defilements, such as, arrogance, selfishness, ignorance, etc. So it says the best teacher. Why this is the best teacher? Because the best teacher challenges the student not to harm them, but to purify the mind and develop true wisdom. A teacher who points out what you cannot see in yourself is the best, because it helps your spiritual path grow. But I don't think this kind of teacher and student relationship works well these days, today, because both teachers and students are not genuine, not authentic. If the teacher and student both are genuine, authentic, this is really, this is not always, you are the best, you're good, you're fine, don't worry. They don't say that. You're doing bad, you're not enough, or these things good, but I don't think this kind of teacher and student relationship works. So therefore the best way is, give teachings, intellectual knowledge, and let the student to make their own decision. That's, I think, best way to help the student. Then the 16th, the best instructions are the ones that target those faults. So in Buddhism, addressing someone's fault does not mean criticizing, blaming, or attacking them. Rather, it means that the instruction is transformative and practical, not just intellectual. It helps the student make real spiritual progress. And when done correctly, this becomes compassionate instruction that helps grow. But if done incorrectly, it can cause harm and create negative karma. A fault should not it says the best instruction are the ones that target those faults. A fault should only be pointed out where there is 100% trust and respect. And when the person is open to guidance. Without trust, respect, pointing out faults becomes harmful sort of criticism rather than instruction, right? However, as I mentioned earlier, in modern times, it is important to use, I think, indirect and skillful methods. And these methods allows students to recognize their fault, which is far more powerful. Not direct, I think. These two are kind of same. It's, like nobody can do the way how Marba instruct, and taught his student. They said that, Milarepa. And Marba said, Milarepa, don't do this the way I do. Nobody will accept and respect you. I mean, they have great wisdom, they know. And then the best friends are mindfulness and awareness. As you know, mindfulness is being fully present to what is happening in your mind, your body, your surroundings. Mindfulness. Awareness is ability to recognize the true nature of this experience. See things clearly as they are, and understand the mind itself. That's awareness. Together, they create a stable and clear mind, right? That's why Atisha said they're the best friend. The best friend is someone who helps you, right? Mindfulness and awareness protect you from negative actions, emotions. So they're always with you if you know it. They're always guiding your actions and your decisions. They help you develop happiness and meaningful life. And with them, you can observe how the mind works. So mindfulness and awareness are like really loyal friends who always tell you the truth, right? So they're your inner best friends, never betray you, never. That's why they are the best friend. Then it says the best encouragements are enemies, obstacles, illness, and suffering. Encouragement is something that pushes us to practice, forces us to wake up, or something that reveals our hidden faults on the spiritual path. That's why. Enemies open up ego, pride, and anger. Without enemies, these faults remain hidden. There were 5 people in Tibet, went on retreat, meditate years and years, and they thought, oh, we're liberated. And then they came back, and towns, cities, there were lots of people or negative or whatever. Their anger arises. So that's why if there is no enemy, we don't really recognize these faults. They remain hidden. So enemies teach us patience, forgiveness, compassion, so on and so forth. So an enemy is like a great mirror showing us where the ego still lives, Then obstacles, it says. Obstacles interrupt our practice and plans. They prevent things from going smoothly or as we hoped. So when these challenges arise, we must use our wisdom and patience, be strong, rather than just, intellectually understanding or talking about teachings. So obstacles really the best encouragement, makes you very strong. Then it says illness. Illness reminds us of impermanence, the limits of our lives, so that it reduces laziness, remind us appreciation, opportunities, strengthens compassion for others who suffer. Okay? Suffering motivates genuine practice, awakening. Without suffering, we cling to samsara. Without any discomfort, we're not going to practice. Why? People say that. I heard 100 times. Why do I need to practice? I'm happy. I have everything. I don't believe future lives. Why do I need to practice? Oh, okay. So when you go through sufferings, then you feel different, right? So it's actually good. Because without suffering, I don't know. Without suffering and you stay happy all the time in samsara, I don't think it's impossible. But if, then we're develop more and more attachment and grasping all this to samsara. So therefore, enemies, obstacles, illness, suffering increase practice, because they forces us kind of to see our ego and apply the Dharma in real life. In daily life, these situations become our greatest teachers on the path if we know how to work with them. If we see them as a negative, then it brings more negative emotions. But if we know how to work with them, then these are the greatest teachers on the path. If we practice with awareness and all that, okay? Then the next it says, the best method is not to alter or fabricate anything. In this context, method does not mean a technique you need to apply. It means the way you relate it to your experience, especially in meditation and in daily life. So in Buddhism, especially like, in Dzogchen traditions, you leave everything just as it, right? Without fabrication. Whatever appears in the mind is already part of reality. You don't change your thoughts. You don't fix emotions. You don't make the mind more spiritual. You don't change anything. Just leave everything just as it is. So in unfabricated mind is very simple and natural. So then what are you supposed to do? You notice what arises, right? Let it arise naturally and let it dissolve naturally. This is why it is called the best method, because it does not create new problems while trying to solve the old problems. So when you stop altering or fabricating thoughts, they lose their power. So emotions self-liberated. Awareness becomes clear by itself. The ego has nothing to manipulate. Therefore, the best method is not doing anything special when you meditate on the nature mind. You don't need visualizations. You don't need change anything. Just not fabricated anything. That is the best method. Leave everything as it is. So this allows the natural clarity of mind to reveal itself. That is what we call enlightenment. So it is considered the best method because it allows you to recognize the true nature of mind directly, and that is who you are. We're closer to 20th. The best help you, the best help you can give is introducing someone to the Dharma. Oh yeah. Because given Dharma teaching helps someone, handle life wisely and freedom from suffering, right? So that's why the best help. It's because, Dharma practice reduce suffering and help them understand the mind. which means cultivate wisdom and compassion, and potentially lead to liberation in one lifetime. So therefore, in Buddhism, helping someone spiritually is considered the highest form of generosity. So when you introduce someone to Dharma with pure motivation, they practice, ethical conduct, therefore reduce harm to themselves and to others. So life becomes more meaningful. So for example, a friend is stressed and very unhappy. If you introduce them to meditation, Buddhist teachings, these very practical Buddhist teachings, they learn how to transform their mind and reduce their suffering, and this provides a long-term benefit. So that's why the best help you can give is introducing someone to the Dharma with pure motivation. I can edit that. The last, 21st essential aspect of the path says, the best help to receive is the turn of one's mind towards Dharma. This is different, right? The first is the best help you can give is introducing someone to Dharma. This one is the best help to receive is the turn of one's mind towards Dharma. As in Tibet, I used to a little bit confused. Both are pan tak pin chok chula tsapa. Pan takpa and pan tokpa is different, So the best help or benefit a person can receive is guidance that helps them focus on spiritual growth. And to turn someone's mind toward Dharma means becoming interested in meditation and ethical practice and choosing to apply the Buddhist teachings in daily life. So Dharma guidance helps a person, a negative person, transform their mind, their heart, and leading to freedom from suffering, freedom from samsara. So in Buddhism, the mind is, again, the source of both suffering and happiness. So helping someone cultivate the mind properly is the best form of help, assistance. And the greatest help you can receive is guidance that teaches you how to take care of your own mind, your own life. That's the best receive. So therefore, learning Dharma helps you, deal with stress, anger, and unhappiness, and eventually leads to long-term, everlasting transformation and happiness. Ordinary help, like money, support, protection, can relieve temporary suffering, and problems, but suffering returns back, because attachment, anger, ignorance still remain. So when the mind turns toward the Dharma, it begins to understand and remove these causes of suffering: attachment, anger, ignorance, these three. The three poisons. And it becomes a stable inner protection. Once they are reduced or they are eliminated completely, these causes of suffering, attachment, anger, ignorance, then it becomes very stable, inner protection. So it can change how you experience everything. That's why it is the best, Atisha concluded. That's the best you receive helping someone. The best, form of assistance, the greatest help you can receive. That's it. So, I hope these teachings help you to develop your meditation. I also hope that this is a stronger way to introduce or teach about Buddhism. Atisha's teaching instructions always very practical, really understandable, because these instructions comes from his not intellectual knowledge, it's experience, from his own experience. And we are very fortunate, had such a great teacher like Atisha. I also think it is wonderful that you all want to practice Dharma. There are so many harmful actions around us, around, world, these days. So therefore, these practices are, I think, so important. Even though he composed these teachings 1,000 years ago, but now it's more and more meaningful, these practices, and helpful and necessary. Anyway, thank you. Without you, there is no chance to share all of these teachings. So I thank you so much. Your genuine motivation to practice the Dharma, to support Buddhist teaching, to support myself and the Sangha. So thank you very much. With that, now we dedicate practice and teachings to all sentient beings for free from suffering.